Nacho Average TableTalk. Woohoo!
Welcome to Nacho Average TableTalk. I'm Zach,
And I'm Pepper.
and this is a video where we ramble on about something in the board gaming sphere.
Yes, and we don't come to any conclusion, because
Yes.
that's how it goes with us.
That is for you guys to do, so leave any comments below that any of your thoughts on this topic. So today we're kind of talking about organizing your shelves and just a couple of the
There's
few of
probably
the things
none of
with
these cubes that you can see are probably organized in the same way.
They are not. So it's been a while since we've organized. So I think we'll probably have to decide. I think the shelf kind of needs some reorganizing. All
Yeah.
the shelf.
Yep.
So I think we're gonna have to decide soon which way we want to sort. And over the times, I feel like we've sorted them differently, just kind of depending on the timing.
Yeah.
But yeah, let us know in the comments below your thoughts on these different things, what you do. We'd love to hear that. But yeah, we'll just get right into it. I guess, would you rather talk about how to sort them or storage?
I think probably just an overall how to sort all the games.
That sounds good.
Yes.
So, like I said, we've done it differently each time.
And this is us with, we're very fortunate to have so many games. We
That
have
is true.
4x4 Calyx Shell. We have 2 of those, and then a 5x5 as well. So
That is true.
back in the day, we probably wouldn't have been able to really talk about this much at all because
Right.
we just had a stack of games
That
on
is
the
true.
coffee table.
That is true. And yeah, if you have a limited collection, I feel like the sorting you might be a little more limited.
But that's also
But yeah.
interesting in itself, into where and how you find places to put them.
That is true. Because yeah, I would say we've had it sorted. I think 3 different ways.
Yep.
I think initially, kind of once we got this, I don't know if we had this shelf yet at that time, but I think at one point we had it sorted by color, and I know I've seen other people do by color as well. And then I think after that, if you've been following the channel for a while, last year, 2022, was when we did the A to Z challenge, I believe.
Yes.
I forget if it was 22 or 21. And then we did kind of videos on each of those. You can go back and check those out. Kind of playing all the games in our collection from A to Z, and then doing a video on like each letter.
Yeah.
So at that point, we had all of them sorted from A to Z, which is an interesting way to sort as well.
Yeah.
And then currently, sort of, it's also a mishmash because it initially, at the beginning of 2023, we are now at the end of 2023,
Yep.
was sorted by kind of categories. No, they weren't perfect categories, I'll say, but kind of over in this area, it was kind of the 2-player games, the party games, the more family weight games that play up to 4 players, I believe.
Yep.
Outside of the party games. And that's kind of what this area was, and then kind of as we went across, I think I stayed with kind of the more approachable games that go to 5 and to 6, and then kind of in the corner over there we've got roll and write games, and then I think it starts to, at that point, then get to the heavier games, and then kind of on the other side is all heavy games or big
box games. Like we have the Wingspan,
nesting
big box, and then the Scythe Legendary box over there as well. So
right, so that's kind of how it's sorted currently. But now it's through the year we've acquired some games as well, so they've kind of just gone into spots they can fit in. So it's kind of not in the best. Still, actually, pretty well intact of that.
Yeah.
But there's definitely some that are not in the area that they probably should be.
Yeah.
So we'll have to redo that somewhat shortly.
Yeah.
I guess, did you have any other? So those were the ways we have sorted them.
I just wrote down a bunch of different random ways you could do it. And speaking of random, what if you just sort it randomly? You just put them in there, and it's absolute chaos. And I thought that could actually be a pretty nice prank. A very evil prank.
Could be a very evil prank.
Very evil prank.
But I guess with that random, would you be saying random where I'm going to try to fill these cubes? So that's another thing we should mention. I guess the ones I've mentioned so far and the way we're sorting them are based on having Calyx cubes or shelves. So that's kind of that. If you have different shelving, obviously it's going to be a little bit different. But yeah, that's what we have. So that's kind of what we're basing off of. But yeah, I guess when you're talking random, are you talking about best way to fill each cube? Being using your space.
Not really. Just
Okay.
just kind of just put games where they are. Put them back. Maybe you
You
don't
said
remember
that.
where it came from. Put it back. I feel like
Yeah, I
that's
don't
probably
know
not
about
a great way to do it.
Yeah.
I had kind of publisher and designer because I know we used to have
That
all the
is true.
Stonemeyer games
We
together.
do actually have one group of
Yes, we have
Garfield
the
all in one
Garfield
cube.
cube. Just has a ton of them, and they've spread out elsewhere as well. And I think Stonemeyer's a little harder to possibly do that because I think that probably the best way to do it is genre and type of game, kind of like we have it now. But I still have that urge to put all the Stonemeyer games together.
Yeah.
And I think Garfield can do that a little easier. Those are all much closer to each other in genre
Yeah,
than the
that's true.
Stonemeyer games.
That's true.
But yeah, so I think that's the only thing that probably would draw me to elsewhere, to break the rule of genre, just to possibly do a publisher or designer cube.
Yeah, that's true. I think that's probably one of the other big ones that you could look at is publisher or designer, and keeping those all together. I think that's probably I would put that along with the other three that I've said.
Yeah, yeah. And then I had the theme, which definitely not going to work for us, since we
That's
probably
gonna
don't know the theme, really, of 90% of these games. But for some people, I mean, if they're all
You
into
could have.
theme,
You could kind of.
I could see like a horror theme, like have that section.
Yeah.
We have what, Final Girl. That's about it. But
Horror.
it could work. It could work. And then I thought maybe a preference. So like your favorite games at one end and the other, and I think that could actually help you realize which games you're just not playing. I mean,
That's true.
and really create a shelf of shame if like one cube or one calyx is just totally games that you are almost never playing.
That's true.
And then
Yeah, that's an interesting thought.
I thought that would be possibly a good exercise.
That's true, and I wonder if not only that, but kind of have a kind of
Like a
conveyor
yeah,
type
thinking a
because I
conveyor.
know I've heard
Yeah.
of people that kind of do that with clothes sometimes. Like
Yeah.
they'll hang them one way, and then if that doesn't get switched by the end of the year to where
Yeah.
they've worn it once, then they get rid of it. So that could be a similar thing with board games.
Be a lot harder because then you'd be cycling it
That's
over
true.
and then
But I suppose, like you said, if you kind of split it, knowing like, oh, I already really like these games,
oh yeah.
you don't necessarily have to do it. You can have kind of one area dedicated
Oh,
to that,
Yep.
and then kind of if you play any of them, kind of move them
Yeah.
somewhere else or something. That could work.
Yeah.
Yeah, it goes to show you if you did or not.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that'd be a good thing to do as well. But yeah, that made me think of another thing where I feel like when we sort it, kind of looking at a top to bottom, because most of the time I don't really think of top to bottom that much in how it's being sorted. It just kind of ends up. But
Oh, yeah.
I feel like sometimes the games that I'm not as interested in playing
Oh, yeah.
end up on the bottom.
Yeah, I mean,
So that's kind of where they end up a little bit.
I would say that holds true. Just looking at the few bottom rows that we can see. I mean, now
That's
since
true.
we've really run out of space, some
Yeah.
have gotten down there that it's like, oh, that deserves to be up higher. But
Right.
you do have that feeling like that's not as good a spot. That's not as good a placement.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, let us
I
know in the
mean,
comments below. Do you tend to see your less favorite games going towards the bottom of your shelf, or is it even?
I mean, yeah, you want to protect the games you love. You don't want any
Right.
dogs or toddlers getting up and messing with them, getting them all dirty.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that plays into it at all or not, but it's not. Like I feel like it's probably maybe an internal thing, but
Yeah.
it's not like I'm intentionally like, oh, that's got to go on the bottom. I think
Yeah.
they just kind of end up there, so I feel like that kind of plays into it. But,
Yeah. Yeah, I think
yeah,
so.
I would say out of all those, I initially did not like the category or splitting them out kind of by groups
Yeah.
as much, but I feel like as the year has gone on, I've come to like that quite a bit, and it just feels right. Like I know all the heavier strategy games are there, party games are over here. I think that might be my favorite way to sort them.
Yeah, I mean, we said we don't come to conclusions to this, but yeah, I
That's
do.
true.
I do probably prefer that one. I think just especially for. I think it happened anyway, just with all like the
Yeah.
Verban rights and the party games and the two-player games. I feel like those really do feel like they have to be in specific areas, and once you do that, what are you left with? But all the
Right.
rest. And then it is nice as well to separate those into kind of slightly heavier games or like by player count as well. Yeah.
And then I feel like if you're doing like the A to Z or the coloring or colors, just I feel like it's a lot tougher to do if you are still in the acquiring phase. If you have a collection that you're not someone that gets a lot of, you don't buy a lot of games, you're not getting rid of games, then I would say if you kind of have a nice curated collection and you're always playing all those games, I think then one of those can work, like A to Z or color.
It depends. If you're often
really depends
coming to play a game and you have a specific game in mind, A to Z is like, okay, now I know exactly where it is. If you're like us and you're like, what game should we play? And you just maybe kind of know a genre, then I think sorting by genre is the way to go.
Yeah, that's true. But so that's kind of our thoughts on that. Let us know below which way you sort, which way you think's the best way. If you have another way, let us know. Because maybe we might have to use that. But otherwise, so the next thing would kind of be filling in the actual shell or cubes, I guess, for us. But you could technically be a shelf if you got something that's more wide open. I guess, and some are probably going to work, like the Calyx shelves probably work better for having forward facing, which is one thing that we would like to talk about. Whereas if you have more of like I call it a library or like book type shelf, longer shelf, I don't know if it feels as right to have front facing games.
No.
So it's not really as much of a thing.
Kind of built for that. A Ticket to Ride size box just fits perfectly in there. It just seems right here. And thinking of other shelves that we've had, it just doesn't feel right to do it there.
Right. I think that would be a little weird, but you could do it. But I guess front-facing games versus having it kind of just like this to be able to see everything. Thoughts on that?
I mean, the amount of times that I've done this over like the past year, I can't count. Because I'm like, okay, what is behind that again? But I've grown to actually like this motion. It seems satisfying, like opening a little door to peek what's behind there. It's like, oh yeah, that's those games behind Nova Roma. So initially I was like, I don't know if I like it. It seems a little annoying to have to do that, but it's grown on me, and I like it, actually. And I like seeing the frontward-facing games, especially if you have... There's so many beautiful covers in our collection, and it's just wonderful to put them on display. And if you have a bunch of unmatched like this, which all are like matching, that's also very good looking, while not being frontward facing. Seeing the edges of them can also be very satisfying as well.
That's true.
So it does depend, and as you can see, we have very mixed in ours.
Right.
The middle section here has a lot more frontward facing ones.
Yeah, that's true.
It's grown on me when initially I was skeptical.
I would agree. I think you have to choose the games, though, and this kind of brings me into another point of filling in the shelves either horizontally or vertically. The thing is you have to choose kind of which games are going to be in the front, because some work and some do not, even if they are Ticket to Ride sized. There are some games, and might be due to it's either like components, insert, depending on those things. And I think another one of our chats eventually is going to be on inserts and things, and maybe that's actually this is the first one we're filming, going to be honest. I don't know if this will come out before that or if that one's going to come out first, so that one may already be out, and if so, it'll be linked below. But that's another thing we're going to probably talk about, and I think one of the main things about inserts for me is sometimes they're not good if you turn the box up, and then all the stuff falls or moves all around. Some are good at it, some are not. So that definitely, if it's one that is not good at it, those I almost never face front facing. You do have to be. You will learn your lessons. Like Red Rising, it's a beautiful cover. I would love to put it on display.
and we have the collector's edition. And even though that does have an insert and does have a top to the insert, it still is a complete mess. Well, not a complete mess. I think the cards stay in place, but all the player cubes are all loose and about. Place. And underneath a full stack of cards in the card section. I'm like, how did you get under there? It found a way. Cubes find a way.
Makes no sense.
But yeah, there's definitely some games like that.
Mm-hmm. So you got to decide that, and then that kind of leads me already into kind of my thoughts on horizontal versus vertical storage. And if you're looking at this, you would assume we do store all of our games. Well, I guess this is split, so maybe you don't know what to think.
Yes, and behind here we actually have some vertical ones.
Yes. So we currently have it mixed.
We have multiple personalities.
We do have it mixed, and I think that's a fair thing. But I would say if there was not that problem of components getting all over the place, inserts being not so great, I think I would always do them vertically. Is that right?
Yep.
I'm like, this way.
This way.
Not this way.
Yeah,
No.
I agree if that wasn't an issue. And sometimes it depends on, like, maybe the artwork on the side of the box, but most of the time I would prefer vertically because it's just so much easier just to slide the game out like a book. It's like books, and maybe it's just in us to want to put it there and store it that way, like a book on the bookshelf. But horizontally, sometimes you do have to do that because of those inserts. And if you want the game at the bottom of the horizontal stack, then you're going to have to either lift all those up, probably a two-person job, or take them all out, or maybe slide them, which doesn't feel the greatest because they're heavy games and it's kind of scraping. So it's always worrisome. Plus, just I don't like, because like I said, they are heavy games sometimes.
Right.
And I don't really like putting all that weight on that bottommost one, so you always have to be concerned, okay, put the heaviest game at the bottom, and then maybe lighter and lighter and lighter. And I don't feel like there's that concern when you do store them vertically.
Yeah, I would 100% agree. And yeah, I think you, at least for what we do, maybe you guys disagree, maybe you store all of yours horizontally, which is totally fine. I think everyone's going to have their favorite.
A non-Calyx shelf, I think it's better to do horizontal, just because these are so nice and contained. Like, we have some more shelves, I guess, I don't know what those are called over there, but they don't really, if they're ones that don't have, like, a wall, an edge there, then I wouldn't feel comfortable having them vertical. I'd feel like they'd maybe tip over and fall out of the shelf.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I would think that, it's got to be vertical.
Yeah.
Just because, you got to figure out which games in your collections have the issue, or at least that's what I feel like we've done, and kind of dedicate a shelf, or every few cubes dedicate something to just your games that you want horizontal, versus having. I'm sure we have some that have ended up horizontal that don't need to be, but overall, I think most of them that we do have horizontal need to be.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's. Part of the insert problem is more of a conversation for another time.
So this is like a cinematic universe. We're just teasing upcoming spin-offs.
There we go.
Check out the Nacho Average Plus TV series about bad inserts.
Yes. I guess outside of that, did you have any other thoughts on how you're putting them in there, forward-facing, any of that?
I don't think so. I don't know exactly what you've written down. We kind of traded ideas.
I guess also your guys' thoughts. Having something smaller be forward-facing, or do they all have to be kind of the Ticket to Ride size boxes? Does it look kind of weird if it isn't?
It's kind of weird when it's two of them like that. If it's something more like this, I feel like that's a little better, where you could even like maybe pull those out and have them flush with that, and you get a frontward display as well as that. But yeah, it's interesting. It's small games always make it tough, and I think that's another thing we could talk about is
that's true.
If you have a bunch of small games, which we do,
how do you store them?
How do you store them? Do you kind of although this isn't a bunch of small games, just happen to be a few small games in this section, and there's a little bit up there. Do you just kind of 3D Tetris fit as many small games into a cube or into your shelf as possible? Which is satisfying when you can get them all to, even though they're all, none of them match box shapes. But if you
These
can,
ones happen to. But
these happen to from the same
they're also
line
in the
of
same
games.
universe.
If you can get them to really work together, that's very satisfying. Could be hard to get individual ones out.
True.
But you could also just maybe dedicate a drawer, which our 5x5 Calyx shelf has 2 cubes dedicated to drawers, so we have 4 drawers, and I think just one of them is dedicated to small games, although those are even smaller than these type of games.
Right. And
But-
I wonder, I mean, if we wanted to, I wonder if we could put some of the smaller ones. But right now, I don't think they're too much of a problem. Like, I like how they kind of look, but
Yeah.
if we needed to, we could probably change one of the other 3
Yeah.
to holding more games.
Yeah.
Some
And
of
I
the
think
smaller ones.
I think it's better. I think we used to kind of maybe just put them wherever they fit, or if there's maybe a little extra room on top of some horizontally stacked
yep.
boxes, we'd be like, throw a point salad in there. And I don't really like that idea of them just being randomly spread out
Yeah.
throughout the shelf.
I would agree.
So I do like at least dedicating either a cube or possibly a drawer. I'm not sure
Or you
which
could-
would be better.
Even with a cube, you could potentially, and I think I've seen people like have either kind of like its own kind of box
Oh,
that closes or some sort of box that they put in there. I think that could be potentially a good option as well
yeah.
if you're going to do the cube option.
Yeah.
I think that's a good way. You can put a bunch of them into that and just easily take that
Yeah.
out and pick a game out of there. It might be, depending on how full that is, like you said, it might be hard to get some of those off the bottom. It might not be the easiest.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
overall, I think storage-wise, I think that works. It's a
Yeah.
good way to do it and keeps them all together so you don't have to necessarily stack them.
Yeah.
Because that could be a little bit more difficult because if you do have them like, oh, I'm putting this perfect polyomino puzzle together, then you take one out and maybe you had to take all these other ones out and then trying to get it all back to the way it was could be a
Yeah.
pain. Whereas if it's just in a box, you can throw them in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, let us know if you have any other ideas of how to store them. Maybe we have to look into it because I think the drawer works, but I mean at the same time I wouldn't say that.
It's a bit out of the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of times I forget that they're there.
Yeah.
Probably because we only have one of them dedicated, one out of 4. So
Yeah.
that could be it.
Yeah. And I guess what? Yeah, I'll go. And from 2 small games to 2 big games.
Yes.
If a game, which thankfully the legendary box of Scythe and the Wingspan nesting box, he knows I always forget it. They're pretty long, so they do
Stick out a little.
bit, I guess. The Scythe box, maybe we have it a little farther away from the wall, so it's pushed back within the cube, but they do stick out a little bit, but their footprint, it does fit into the Calyx cube. Very appreciative of.
There are some that do not.
There are some that do not. Everdell Complete Collection. Looking
trying
at
to
you.
I'm trying to remember if
Maybe it did.
does it fit this way? It just sticks out a lot. I don't remember.
Yeah, it's
It might not
very
even.
long, so it would stick out a lot.
Yes.
Well, how far can it stick out before you have to move it? That's what I'm thinking. Because we had Torres for a while, which was
That's true.
kind of a thin, long box, which is just such an awkward shape. I mean, it slides in there, and it's pretty thin, so it's really nice, like, to fill an awkward space left in a, like, vertically stacked box, but it just stuck out like 3 inches from the cube, and so it'd always be like down on the bottom somewhere where it's not just like eye level bothering
in the
me.
face.
Yes. So I don't know how much, probably an inch would be like the farthest before it's just like, okay, this can't be here.
Yeah, it could maybe go a couple inches, but yeah, you start getting. It depends where you how you have your shelves in comparison to how you're going. You could maybe do one on maybe the end of a shelf if it's kind of close to a wall or something.
That's true.
That might work, but otherwise we have ours on the top of the shelves.
Yep.
So we got that, and we got Mechs versus Minions. I don't remember if that fits in a Calyx at all. It might be too big too.
Yeah, it might be.
And too many bones
It's
is
just
is
like,
a
there's
square,
there's no
but
way.
doesn't fit in any way.
Maybe diagonal. No.
So that one has to go on the top.
Edge of Darkness, which I don't know if we've tried.
I
but
don't think we've
I
tried.
don't think that's just massive.
It's a huge box too. So
Yeah. Luckily, we have a high enough ceiling that we can even fit games on top of the 5x5
yes.
shelf, and I think it actually is a really great height of the 4x4 to be able to put on display. Most of the way too large games
Yep.
do actually have pretty nice covers and artwork. We have Endless Winter, which I think would fit in a box.
I think
but,
Endless Winter would fit.
It's just easier to put it up top and easier to access from there instead of sliding it out and actually put on display some really nice looking games. Have this one, which definitely can fit in one of these, but I just have it up
currently
there for some reason, probably because I could not figure out how to fit it back into one of these cubes. But yeah, I think that works pretty well. It's pretty convenient to have that extra space up there.
I would agree. I think that's good for storage, but we do have kind of some more knick-knacky type things in there as well, which I think looks
and a couple things
decent.
That you would maybe have to disassemble to put back into the box.
Yes.
That really should fit in the boxes if they're so big, but we don't want to have to reassemble them every time, so we just keep them assembled on the tops of the shelves.
Yes. Have to remember that they're there. But yeah, let us know what you use the top of your shelves for. Do you put games up there? Do you, I don't know, have... It probably depends on how far your ceiling is above the top shelf, I would think, because you're probably not going to show too much kind of, I don't know, knick-knacky or whatever you want to call them on the shelf if it's right next to the ceiling. But, yeah. So yeah, I think those are kind of a lot of the main things we wanted to talk about. We'd like to hear what other people have to say, so definitely leave a comment below if you've got interesting facts about how you store your games. We'd love to hear them, but yeah, otherwise we've got nothing else for you. Definitely check out our insert talk when we either whether that's already out or if it's coming. You're going to have to find out. So you better get subscribed if you've been watching to this point. We'd appreciate it. Like the video. And otherwise, we hope to see you on the next one. And as always, don't forget to
keep on nibbling
on our content.